is Jack Nuzzo. My real name is Jacques Nuzzo, but I'm from Decatur, so a lot of people can't pronounce that really well. So literally, just call me Jack. It's a lot easier. Literally, a few years ago, I was in the hospital waiting to get this kidney stone out of me, and the nurse came out and went, Jacques. But in Decatur, I'm also known as the bird guy, and I don't know if that's a title I really wanted. Batman sounds so much better. But bird guy is what I've been called, and that's because I work with birds. I have a passion for birds, this actually wasn't part of my original presentation, but listening to our last speaker, that passion came from my grandmother. That's the lady who taught me birds and taught me how to identify birds. She had this passion for birds, and when she passed away, that was pretty much like I just said that was what I was going to do with my life. So people find birds fascinating, and some people are afraid of birds. I have run into these people throughout the years, and they have said, oh, I hate birds, I don't love it, I don't like birds in my yard. But when you show them a beautiful bird, like this thing, this is a white-throated sparrow, which is just a gorgeous little bird with that beautiful yellow contrast on its head. If you show them stuff, there's always something about birds that people like. And so it could be coloration, it could be song. How many people walked out and enjoyed a beautiful day and hear the birds singing? You don't even know exactly what birds are out there, but they do have beautiful song to their habits, to their habitats, even up to the point where some of their lives are a little secretive, where you get to kind of see some really interesting things in there. One of the things that I find fascinating about birds is migration. Oops, sorry, I can't do that. And that's the fact that birds move from one spot to another spot. And a few years ago, I was in Central Park. There was red-tailed hawks nesting on the Citizens Building down there, and I'm the guy that discovered them. I was so excited that I saw this red-tailed hawk flying with a giant stick in its beak, and I thought, where's he going, and what's he doing with that stick? And he flew up and he started building this nest, and I was there every single day. I was so excited they were going to nest there, and it turned out they nested underneath the WAD's weather cam, so we could and they gave me the code to their camera, which don't ever do that. But I'm going all over the park, and I'm just like, this is so cool. And I was out there one day, and this lady walked up to me, and she said, I've seen your stuff on Instagram and stuff like that. And I said, yeah. She goes, I just have one problem. You keep calling them your birds. And I was like, well, they are. I found them. I found them, and they're mine. But then I started thinking about what she said, and they're not. And so when I was asked to do this talk, I started thinking about these are really not our birds. And one of the things I find fascinating about birds is the fact that they move from one spot to another spot. Some of these birds you don't find here unless they're moving through. So migration is really well known with certain species like geese. These are snow geese migrating through. Let's try this again here. And I'm just going to go back and do this. How's that? And people come out all over the place to see these birds. And there are bird nuts out there. There are people, and they're not all conservation people. This is actually something I've learned not too long ago. I always thought that bird people were people that were recycling people, and they're not. Some of these people go out and watch birds just because they want to check it off on their list. I mean, they'll run you over just so they can see this bird. They don't care anything about you, and I was like really shocked. And I have to be honest about this photograph. I wanted a picture of birders, and it was at the last minute. So this is actually all staged. But it's so beautiful. So two of my volunteers from the Raptor Center and my boss, I told them, I was like, you guys got to come over here because we got to stage a photograph. And I was like, look at birds. And they were like, okay. And I was like, look at me like you're looking at birds. You notice my boss isn't smiling, by the way. So birders come out in droves and see these birds passing through migration. Some of these birds, like we said, geese are really well known. Birds like American robins. This is a bird that everybody knows migrates. This thing goes all the way down to South America. Well, actually more Mexico. Some robins don't migrate. They actually kind of stay around. But most of them do go, and if they do go, they go all the way down to Mexico. And down in Mexico, there are people who are very, very excited for the arrival of their robins. where we're excited in the spring for them coming up, they're excited for them coming down. Some of these migrants are birds that we don't expect. You get guys like this. This is on the dam on Lake Decatur. This is an Arctic owl sitting on the rocks below the dam on Lake Decatur. This is a snowy owl. This is an owl that was raised, hatched, flew around the Arctic tundra. And if you don't know where that's at, go to a map, find Canada, and then go north of that even. So this is a bird that started off way up somewhere like near Barrow, Alaska, and was sitting on the rocks down at our dam here in Decatur. This is actually an owl that does nest in the state of Illinois, but it's so rare that the only time that you actually see populations of this bird is when it does migrate around. So their migrations are really weird. So some birds have very set patterns. They go to set places on set times. And then you get birds like this that show up whenever. And you don't know when they're going to show up. You don't know where they're going to show up. And I think I've said this 1,000 times. So this is my most absolute favorite bird of all time. It's a bird of prey. I love this thing. It's a grassland species owl. It lives in grasslands. Illinois is the prairie state. This used to be covered in these owls, and now they're pretty few and far between. Though last year in Decatur, in Macon County, we had the largest wintering populations of short-eared owls in the entire state of Illinois. So we had 21 of these birds that showed up here. And I kept it a secret. One, because it was a secret location, and two, I was selfish. I wanted those short-eared owls for myself. I just could not get enough of those short-eared owls. So, some people report these things. So we actually understand some of this migration through people who are bird nuts, and you don't have to be one of those field people with binoculars. Just people who feed birds sometimes might see something really interesting to their feeder, and then they get on public forums and they say, look, this bird just showed up, and that lets everyone else know that these guys are coming. These are rose-breasted grosbeaks. I don't know if anyone's ever seen these, but this is one of the most beautiful birds on the face of the planet. And these are all male rose-breasted grosbeaks with a little female cardinal in the back. They're actually in the same family. Just a little side note, those beaks hurt. It's like getting bit by a pair of vice grips. And I'll tell you how you get bit by them a little bit later here. So when you get these migrants in the spring, this is a bird that shows up in the spring. It does nest here, but you rarely see it at your feeders in the summer, and you hardly ever see it in the fall. But in the spring, one day, you've got no birds at the feeder, maybe a few sparrows here and there, and then you turn around and there's 15 pairs of these just dropped in out of the sky in your yard. And then it just makes you want to run out and buy more bird seed and start putting bird seed everywhere. Some people go out in the woods and they look for stuff. This is something you don't normally see at the feeder. These are birds that you find in Macon County, all right? On top are the scarlet tanagers. And that scarlet tanager is the reason why I have a passion for birds. Because the first one I ever saw was sitting at my grandma's bird feeder. I looked out the window and I said, Grandma, there's a bird. I have never seen that bird before in my life. And she came up to the window and lost her mind. She went nuts. She was, oh my God, it's a scarlet tanager. And I was like, well, a scarlet what? And from that day on, I knew that this was an important bird because it was important to my grandmother. But people will go out and I'll admit, that's a female scarlet tanager in there. Yes, I was hiding in the bushes with a camera. I'll admit it. I was hiding and waiting for that. Down below are summer tanagers, so the same family. And these are birds that you might want to go out and look for, or even better yet, one of these little things in the fall. Just this absolutely gorgeous bay-breasted warbler. And believe it or not, some of these birds, when they're migrating, they're tired. And they're not as worried. And so you can get fairly close to these. This little bay-breasted warbler, the day I found it, literally just sat 2 feet away from me and watched me the entire time. And I just took its picture. Just the other day, I had a different warbler jump in my golf cart with me and just looked at me and sang. And I was like, my camera lens is this long, and I can't get a picture of it. And it's just sitting there and it was driving me crazy. So there are some other things that we can do. There are things that we can do to track migrations. So there is some technology in tracking migrations. And so there's a whole load of people that create technology for us to understand how birds move from one spot to another spot. This is an osprey, which is a fishing hawk. And This is an osprey that we have fitted. Yeah, it is real. It has a little hood on its head, like a little helmet to keep it from not seeing us, so we can attach a global positioning transmitter on its back. That little solar-powered transmitter sends a signal out to a satellite, which sends it back to a computer that we can get on, and we can tell you where that osprey is. So I've been involved for the last several years in a reintroduction program, bringing these birds back to the state of Illinois, and we have had these birds with transmitters. Some of them don't make it, which is sad because those transmitters are about $5,000 a piece. So when you lose one in the Gulf of Mexico, you just sit there and do this. We just lost one. But it is really interesting because I got a cool story about these osprey transmitters. So this is one way we could track these migrations. Another way, though, and this is a little more low-tech. A low-tech way is a band, a federal bird band, which is that little tiny aluminum band on its leg. This is a really cool way and a very, very, very simple way to track birds. So what you do is you trap birds. This is a white-breasted nuthatch. You trap a bird in a mist net, you get it out, you get some measurements, and then you just attach this little band. It's no different. I don't know if anyone remembers these things or not, but we used to wear these things called watches before there were phones. They used to be on your wrist quite a bit. So it's just like wearing a watch. And so each one of those bands has a unique number to its band. No two bands have the same number. No two bands do. And so the idea is that if this bird flies off and gets retrapped somewhere from another bird banding area, then they could go, look, this bird has been banded before. They write the number down, they turn that information in, and all of a sudden we get data. If this bird was trapped in this one spot and it was trapped 6 years later in another spot, we have longevity. We have distance travel from a very, very simple little thing. And the neat thing about those bands is this. During our osprey project, we did have GPS transmitters on some of the birds. We have 12 birds in this project, but we can't put transmitters on all of them. But we did band them. And not only did we band them, we put an additional band. We put a band that we can see the number clearly from a distance. And so basically we released about 70 osprey in about a 5-year span. And this year, somebody called and said one of the hatch sites, one of the areas we released the ospreys, that there was an osprey hanging around that was banded. And so I went out, took the only photograph of this guy, took that picture, and on that band was 48D. And automatically we knew that 48D was a bird that was removed from Langley Air Force Base, brought to Illinois, was at my center, was released at a hack site, what we call in Shelbyville, back in 2017. 2 years later, he's back, and he brought a girlfriend with him. And that was the whole purpose of this project. And that one low-tech solution told us where this guy went, who he brought back. They're not the greatest parents because they don't know how to build a nest yet. They built a really awful nest and then they laid some fish in it. I don't know if he was doing that like, hey, you know, look, dinner. But hopefully they'll come back next year and improve on it a little bit. Then you get into guys like these. You get people that love the design of birds. And when I was putting this thing together, and this is a really rare hummingbird. This is a hummingbird you're not going to see in your backyard. By the way, if you do see this in your backyard, you call me immediately. And don't call anyone else. Just call me. Don't tell anyone. Just get a hold of me, and we'll take care of the whole photography thing and everything for you. This is a rufous hummingbird. This is a bird from the Pacific Northwest. It's not even supposed to be here. And for some strange reason, these rufuses get off course, and they wind up here in the central part of the state at people's backyards. This literally was a video that someone sent my aunt. My aunt sent me the video and said, what is this? I don't normally, I'm a bad responder to text. I like, okay. And she said she never received a text back so fast in her life as, where is this? And she said, it's my friend's yard. I was like, where is this? And so I went to the yard. The people were really nice, because this is a rare bird. But just think about design for a second in birds. So when I was putting this picture in the PowerPoint, I started thinking about something. So this rufous hummingbird is about this big. And it migrates from the Pacific Northwest down to Mexico and goes back. We know that because you can ban these hummingbirds. The bands are really tiny, but you can ban these hummingbirds. And we know, so how many people feed hummingbirds in their yard? Okay? And you wonder, is that hummingbird that comes back every spring, is that the same one? banding records show us, yes, that is. It's the same one. So it makes this trip, goes all the way back. So all this information, all this equipment for traveling these vast distances are in that little tiny brain. And I mean, it's small. And then the other day I was thinking, this bird is amazing because it can fly up, it can fly down, it can fly forward, it can do something no other bird can, it can fly backwards. Who's ever seen a chicken fly backwards? No. Who's ever seen an eagle fly? They can't do it, but this bird can. And then I started wondering about how the operating system works on this bird, right? How is this bird designed internally? Like, how big is this thing's heart? Because its eggs are the size of Tic Tacs. Wow. So its heart's got to be as big as a pinhead. And then I'm thinking, and it does all this, and it's fueled by sugar water. That's the fuel for this bird. You pump a little sugar water into it, and it just defies gravity. We have a plane that does that, the Harrier Jump Jet, and it's huge. And it runs on diesel fuel, and it's crazy aviation fuel, and yet you have the same system in these little things. So design to me is just amazing in these guys, and that's one of the things that I love so much about it. So basically, in closing, is birds spread across the globe in migration. People from all over the world work with them. People from all over the world watch them. And I think migrating birds are probably one of the greatest examples of technology, entertainment, and design. Thank you very much.